Welcome to the October 18th, 2021, 6 p.m. meeting of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners. I now call the meeting to order. As customary, we do the prayer and the pledge. I'm going to call on Mr. Harris for the prayer, Mr. Braswell for the pledge. Please stand.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's pray together. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for the opportunity to come together and serve the citizens of this county. Father, we ask that you bless this meeting and bless those in attendance and those within the sound of my voice, that the decisions made here would be for all people, and that the county would benefit. Give us strength and wisdom and courage, Father, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Before we start the pledge, I'm going to ask that we have a moment of silence in memory of our troops that were killed in Afghanistan recently, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Okay, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. First item on the agenda is approval and discussion of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move the agenda be approved as presented.
Second. We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is consent agenda items. We have got A through E. You have it at your desk. A through C. You got it at your desk. Anything that be pulled, added, deleted?
So move we approve the consent agenda items A through C.
Second. Got a motion, got a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is public comments. I do have noted here that Mr. O'Neill would like to address us during the public comment period.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just wanted to come before you tonight and give you a little thanks. We wanted to give you a heads up. We did receive a $500,000 grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is a U.S. fund. If you remember, last year, you gentlemen signed a resolution for the Great American Outdoors Act, and this is part of that. I don't know that I know that it didn't directly affect it, but it did in the long run. So I just wanted to tell you thanks on behalf of the Parks, Greenways, and Open Space program, and let you know that it's a good thing. That total brings the total to $1 million that we have been granted by the state and the federal government towards that project, which was $1.6 million. So for 77 acres, we have paid $600,000, which in Johnston County right now is a very good deal. So again, thank you. Appreciate the support and the ongoing support for the program, and I hope to give you some more good news before too long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. O'Neill? Comments?
Thank you for your work in coordinating all this, and we're excited to see the results.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it is public comment period. As you know, this is a period where anyone can address this board on an item that's not on the agenda for 3 minutes. Anybody would like to address this board?
Briefly, if that's okay.
Please. It's for anybody who would like to comment.
Commissioners, Chairman Stewart, Joe Preston, 202 Carissa Drive. I am here today to talk about a safety issue I think that's going on with the drop-off and pickup lines of our schools. I don't know if you're really who I need to address about that, but it might, involve some funding that you're doing. I've been to almost half the schools in the county, and some of these, especially the rural schools, very dangerous, especially as they're leaving, exiting the school. I feel like we're a little bit thin on resource officers and the police that are able to go into the city schools. I don't know if there's any way that we could possibly put up a yield light or stop light at any of these intersections. There's obviously some lack of bus drivers right now, things like that, so more and more people are involved in the drop-off and pickup lines. And you're probably already thinking about that and addressing that, but I'm unaware of it, so I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. You're shaking your head like you are thinking about it already, so that's all I wanted to say. Just have that in the back of your mind of something I think needs to be addressed, especially how quickly the county is growing and the number of people that are dropping off.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Yes, obviously the school board,
Yeah.
no, you're fine.
Okay.
Obviously the school board would do that as, that's in their preview, but you're right, with the finance end, as you know, we approved the rest of their request, and I think that will go towards bus drivers, and maybe some of that funding can go to the issue that you described here tonight. Any more comments, for Mr. Preston?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to address this board on an item that's not on the agenda? Yes, ma'am, please come up.
Good evening, board. I am Angelique Leggett. The address is 206 West Wilson Street, Smithfield, North Carolina, and that is what I'd like to address. I can appreciate the importance of knowing that the people speaking are in Johnston County, but I don't think that I'm not comfortable with having my address out there. There are some people who don't like law enforcement, for one. There are some people who don't like other people. And for us to have to constantly come up here and put our address out there, I think it's something of a safety concern. And I was just wondering if you guys can maybe look into that and consider maybe another way to prove that we belong here to address the board. And that was all.
Okay, all right, I hadn't actually thought of that.
Very
What the
insightful.
idea of having a speaker just hand their written address to the clerk or something like that before addressing the board?
Counselor,
Counselor, you want to weigh in?
do you want to weigh in on this?
That's an option. There's not a rule that requires that they state the address. I think one of the reasons historically boards have done that is to get approximation of where folks live and who's speaking to you and those sorts of things. And so options could be to provide that information directly to the clerk, or to get up and say, I'm a resident of Johnston County in the such and such township, or town of Clayton, or whatever it may be where they live. But that's certainly a good point, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
I do too, and I guess we kind of did that with zoning cases, which we're not by legislation doing anymore, because they were sworn under oath or whatnot. But that brings up, and you bring up a very good point. I guess for this board, and I'm not speaking for the whole board, but when people address us, we kind of want to know they live in Johnston County, and obviously we can leave it at that. We don't want people in other counties, not that we don't want them, but we just want to have an understanding of where they live and when they're addressing their concerns. But valid point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor, is there is that an item that we would need to move on, or would it be sufficient if we all agreed that maybe if they just state the municipality or township or whatever?
I think it would be
you want to call it?
sufficient, just a general consensus of what information that you would like to receive. And Mr. Stewart did make a good point with regards to zoning cases. Certainly, those are a little bit different than public comment. And we do need to know who the interested parties are to make sure that they have standing to get before you and talk when you've got a quasi-judicial matter. But for purposes of public comment, I think town or township would be sufficient if that's the pleasure of the board.
I don't think you're going to get any pullback with
I
this
think it's a
board.
good idea.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you,
your
ma'am.
consideration.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak at public comment on an item that is not on the agenda? If not, any emails, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
No emails. All right, next on the agenda is public hearing, Economic Development Incentive Grant. We're going to have our own Mr. Johnson. I'm going to open the public hearing. Well, hear from Mr. Johnson first and then open the public hearing.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before I begin, I would like to, Adrian stepped out, but publicly thank him as well as Commissioner Godwin for his assistance in the Cyclone C that came through Johnston County 2 weeks ago, I guess, or a week and a half maybe, sometime last week. But to have well over 500 cyclists come through Johnston County is a huge economic benefit to our merchants in downtown Smithfield, and I know a lot of civic organizations raise funds by having a pancake breakfast or something like that. So we certainly do appreciate the state of North Carolina and the Cyclone C group and Adrian's involvement on behalf of the county. During my 8-year tenure as Economic Development Director, we've been very blessed and fortunate to have dozens of project announcements that have totaled well over $3 billion and have created thousands of jobs. I believe that this is largely due to our green tape, not red tape, and pro-business leadership that you and the other commissioners prior have provided. Yes, our close proximity to Raleigh and the Triangle region serve a great benefit, but this wouldn't have been made possible without the conservative business principles that you and our citizens hold dear. Yet with the successes that we have achieved, we've still missed out on a tremendous amount of opportunities. We're addressing some of these missed opportunities with our recent spec building lease program that was adopted earlier this year. But tonight's project allows us to take a step into the economic development circle and compete with those high-paying office and corporate jobs that tend to locate in other areas of the Triangle. I'm honored to stand before you, this commission, to present to you a project for your consideration. It is the Craig Davis Properties desire to invest and build a state-of-the-art Class A office complex campus that will be located on Highway 42 in the future I-42 70 in Clayton. This 500,000 square foot multi-story buildings will be a beacon to those entering the county of Johnston and allow our corporate residents to find high-paying employment right here in Johnston County. In addition to the over $200 million investment, Project Lumen will also create thousands of new jobs with an average salary well above the county average of $42,000. So we're talking in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $55,000. As I've mentioned to you many times before, I would like to reiterate that to our taxpaying citizens that any economic development incentive comes at no risk to the taxpayers, and that these incentives only come from the company's investment, which equates to the percentage of taxes that the Craig Davis Properties pays on the $200 million in new investment. If the required benchmarks set forth in the agreement are not met, no incentive is given. Again, this comes at no risk to the taxpayers and the citizens of Clayton or Johnston County. As with all the economic development incentive grants, this has been vetted and approved by the Johnston County Economic Development Board, a board that consists of 14 business, civic, and community leaders that represents every municipality in Johnston County. As a suggestion and as a economic development incentive policy regarding office space, it's a $40 million investment within the first 3 years, and a total of $100 million must be met within the first 5. Commitment of over 100 jobs, which obviously this will be close to 2,000. The average salary must be 5% above the county average, which that will meet. Class A office space, 4-story minimum. And it must be within the city limits of a municipality or annexation required. And the municipality must also offer an incentive package. And as we know, I believe the company is also meeting with the town of Clayton this evening. 50% of the EDIG on the total investment with a 7-year maximum. And it checks all the legal requirements for economic development incentive grants, which means the minimum threshold has been met, the job creation threshold has been met, and that it meets the competitive requirement that this project is also considering other areas in the Triangle region. This project and investment has also been evaluated by Dr. Mike Walden, retired professor and economist with North Carolina State. His report shows that the monetary investment as well as the jobs and ancillary job growth is projected to be over $264 million annually with the potential to create over 2,000 jobs. And that this investment results in nearly $400,000 in new taxes for the town and almost $2 million for the county. Again, new investment, no risk. We respectfully ask the Johnston County Commissioners to consider the economic development incentive grant presented before you and awarded to Craig Davis Properties. Again, Craig Davis Properties is only eligible after the project is completed and the requirements set forth in the agreement are met. At this time, I'd like to call on our county attorney, Ms. Jennifer Slusser, to discuss the project summary and answer any questions, after which I would like to then invite Mr. Dean Penny from Craig Davis Properties and invite him to make a few comments. But is there any questions from the board?
Any questions for Mr. Johnston?
I have one question, Chris.
Yes.
There's no obligation on the county's part to extend any infrastructure that is not already existing out there?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is all going to be within the town of Clayton, so it's going to be 100% county.
Okay, great.
Okay, I think we're going to call on our county attorney, Ms. Slusser. This is still an open public hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I offer for your consideration a resolution and proposed economic development incentive grant for the proposed project by Davis Park Leasing, LLC. As Mr. Johnston explained to you, for your consideration, or before you tonight for your consideration, is a $200 million capital investment to develop and construct a minimum of 525,000 square feet of Class A office space for office and industrial usage for medical and other purposes in the western portion of the town of Clayton, which is strategically important to the county and will serve as a catalyst for future development in that NC Highway 42 corridor. The employment commitment for this project is no less than 100 permanent full-time jobs for employees to work in that office component of the project site. And it may not be positions that are transferred or relocated from another location within Johnston County. So these have to be net new jobs within Johnston County. In order to qualify for the incentive grant, the first milestone, as Mr. Johnston talked about, of the $40 million investment must be complete by March the 31st, 2024. And the final milestone for the project, meaning construction build-out, must be completed by December the 31st, 2029. The incentive proposal that is before you tonight is a cash grant made from general county fund revenues in 6 annual payments that would begin on March the 15th, 2025 and continue through March the 15th, 2030. And they are quantified and measured as 50% of the ad valorem taxes that would be paid during that investment period. Only investments that are made in furtherance of the construction of the Class A office buildings of the office component on the project site are eligible for grant. There would be no incentives that would be paid on the cost of land or for the relocation of existing offices within Johnston County. So these must be all net new. Everything must be new. If the incentives are granted, Davis Park Leasing commits to assemble a 65-acre project site by March the 31st, 2024, make all of the eligible investments of no less than $40 million by March 31st, 2024, and $200 million to attain the investment goal by December the 31st, 2029, attain employment goal of at least 100 full-time permanent employees by December 31st, 2029, with an endeavor to cause no fewer than 2,800 new jobs at the project site by that same date. They have to provide a certification of employment, and they must exercise commercially reasonable efforts in order to develop all of the elements of the mixed-use development outside of the office component that has been proposed as reasonably as practical. The grant payments are conditioned upon Davis Park Leasing paying in full all of its ad valorem tax bills for the year for all property that it owns situated within Johnston County that is subject to ad valorem taxation. They must be current on all payments that are owed to the county, regardless of what those payments may be for. They have to be current in the filing of all of their tax listings and have no pending appeal regarding valuation of property at the project site before the North Carolina Property Tax Commission. And finally, they cannot be in violation of any obligation under the agreement or any county ordinance or county regulation in order to receive a grant. There are also proposed recapture provisions within the proposed agreement if Davis Park Leasing does not do or carry out or maintain all of the terms of that agreement. And as we've talked about before, and I want to review it with you again, when we consider all of these incentive grant opportunities, you are required to consider several factors in making your determination. And those factors are job creation, capital investment, competition, and whether the proposed project diversifies the economy. In this particular case, the question, does the project provide a substantial number of permanent jobs? The answer is yes. It provides for not less than 100 jobs with an average salary of $55,000. And according to the Walden report, there is an expectation of direct and indirect job creation as a result of the investment of 2,800 new jobs in Johnston County. The capital investment piece, does it increase the tax base? Yes, they are committing to Class A office component within the mixed-use development with a capital investment total of $200 million. According to the Walden report, taking into account all of the direct, indirect, and included impacts from the development contemplated for this office component, it's estimated to be in excess of $471 million. And importantly, in no case will Davis Park Leasing ever receive more in incentives than what they've paid in taxes. An initial but-for analysis is always required with these, and typically that is in a competitive situation. So in other words, but for the incentives that you're offering tonight, would the project locate in Johnston County, North Carolina? An analysis of this is the but-for requirement was met. In this case, we were competing with several locations throughout North Carolina. The proposed project also meets the county incentive policies that were described earlier by Mr. Johnston for this type of project. And again, that capital investment is $200 million. The diversification of the economy piece, and in analyzing that, what you're looking at is the net public benefit based upon that job creation and increasing the tax base. And diversification of the economy refers to significant impacts on sectors of the economy or making the location attractive for additional economic development. And all of these things are addressed within that Walden report. And we always have economic impact analysis performed prior to bringing you a project. This particular project before you tonight meets all of those above reference criteria should you choose to approve it. And before you, you do have the resolution and a draft agreement. I would suggest that since we are having public hearings at the same time on this project tonight, and part of your policy requires that the town adopt an incentive agreement in order for the county to do so under the policy that Mr. Johnston described, that should you approve it, I think it should be contingent upon approval of incentives from the town of Clayton. But those are my comments with regards to the particular agreement that you have before you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about that.
Any questions?
I was going to ask a question, Council, about how do we verify the net aspect of this, but I see that within the resolution there's ample opportunity for the county to request DPO to verify compliance in any number of ways we may ask.
Oh, yes, sir. And that process, we work with our tax office, and there are also certification requirements with regards to the job creation pieces. So all of those will be met. No incentive would be paid prior to verification of that investment and job creation.
Any more questions?
I did have one quick clarification. So did you say the approval by the town of Clayton for an incentives grant is in language in the resolution, or we need to add
that language is not in the resolution, and I would just suggest that if there was a motion to approve, that you include that contingency.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you,
Thank
Council. I think at this time we're going to call up the gentleman with the request. And normally I'd say state your name and address for the record, but if you just give us a great idea of your proximity.
Good evening.
He's standing right here right now.
My name is Dean Penny, and I am a resident of Johnston County in the Clayton Township, or just outside. And I am happy to be here tonight representing Craig Davis Properties. We're very thankful to be in partnership with you and in your consideration of this economic development grant to be able to bring something new to Johnston County. We were considering several other options, and I'm really glad to be part of this, and this incentive is definitely key in allowing us to bring this to Johnston County. So thank you for that. And I'll just open up and see if there's any questions that you have for me.
Any questions, comments? If not, we appreciate you investing in Johnston County. Look forward to good things. Good luck. We're with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, this is a public hearing. Does anyone want to speak for or against this incentive grant? If not, any final comments or questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, Mr. Chairman. You know, over the years, we've talked about the nature of these public hearings for this type of thing, and obviously there's a confidentiality aspect that has to be employed when we get to the point we're at now. And we've had some folks indicate that maybe if we should allow more time for public comment. But I think that we're well versed in it, and we've advertised the fact that we've had a public comment. There's nobody here to. What I'm saying is, I'm open-minded. If there was someone here from the public who really had a strong issue that we needed to consider, then I would not hesitate to let's put this off to consider that aspect. But by and large, most of the time, these things do go through without any really hitch. So I just want it stated out loud that we do consider what the public has to put into this.
Good point. Anyone else have a comment, Commissioner? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing. What is the pleasure of this board?
Mr. Chairman, I yield to Commissioner LAWTER.
Then I would make the motion that we approve the incentives grant for economic development with Davis Park Leasing, contingent upon approval of an incentive grant by the town of Clayton as well.
Second. We've got a motion. We got a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is Alzheimer's Disease Awareness and Caregivers Month Proclamation, November 2021. I think we're going to call on our Register of Deeds, Mr. Craig Olive.
Trying to team up out there, I think.
Hello. Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
It is a pleasure to be here tonight, along with the community services, Mr. Neil Davis and his staff. We would like for y'all to approve this motion for Alzheimer's and caregivers. I have a personal story of that. My mother died of Alzheimer's. Her sister did. My grandmother did. And some of my family has it now, dementia. And there's a lot of caregivers out there that's caring for dementia, Alzheimer's patients, along with other illnesses like heart problems. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that the caregivers are not forgotten, and there's a lot of resources in our local community senior services, and they can reach out to them.
You're right, Mr. Olive. I guess this affects about every family in some form or fashion, and our society as a whole. And I think this awareness is very important. Aging is something we want to do, and we want to do gracefully, but it does come with its disadvantages.
You know, Craig talked about it affecting his mother. It affected my mother for 6 years or more, but it's not his mother, it's his family, and it's my family. It's all the victims' families. They're all victims. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the proclamation and support this endeavor annually.
Second.
We've got a motion. We've got a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, you like to say anything? You're obviously more than welcome.
I'm Neil Davis. I'm a resident of Johnston County on the western end of the county, so I'm glad to be here. Mr. Olive has been a longtime supporter of our programs, particularly in the area of caregiver support, senior center operations, and that type of thing. And it's through his diligence and support that we're able to host a candlelight reflection ceremony here in the atrium of the courthouse on November 4th at 6 p.m. So if you're able to be there and attend that, it's a special time to be together. So thank you for this proclamation and your support.
Thank you for everything you
I've
do for
heard some
senior
of your-
services.
I've heard some of your staff members on the radio making the citizens aware that there is help for caregivers and tell them how they can get that help, so I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is Technology Services Fiber Upgrade Project. Do we have Mr. Howard to present?
I saw him.
There's Mr. Howard.
How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing good.
That's great, that's great.
So you gonna bring fiber to my house? Not quite, huh?
I think we're gonna get there one day.
That's another project.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to come before you tonight. Technology Services request approval to proceed with a fiber upgrade project at a cost of $94,364 with Benchmark Network Solutions. The fiber to be replaced is a multi-mode fiber, which is old, outdated fiber that we have here in the county, which has distance and speed limitations, and in certain areas is over 20 plus years old. This virgin fiber limits the ability to take advantage of our new network and switching upgrades. The outdated multi-mode fiber will be replaced with newer single-mode fiber, which does not have distance limitations or speed limitations based on the current network configurations that we have in place with our new networking gear. Funds for the project were budgeted and approved in the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Technology Services request permission to proceed with this upgrade. I also want to mention that this will also include the 911 fiber upgrades that Brett came before you in the last meeting. So that'll be included on this budget as well.
Are there any questions for Mr. Howard?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the fiber upgrade project as requested by Technology Services.
Second.
We've got a motion, we got a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Rember, I don't know if you'd like to address the board, speak on this. Didn't quite give you the opportunity.
No, sir, no additional really comments, just thank you. It will enhance a lot of things that we do in the 911 center with a new public safety center. Instead of doing point-to-points that are costly, we can do multiple connections at a much lower price and get the same fluidness throughout our, I don't mean to take his stuff away from him, but all through the system, the way we connect and talk to one another.
Well, it's
It works good for everybody
Well, thank you.
involved.
That's important how everybody and organizations work together for the
Yes, sir.
benefit of the county.
Thank you for all your work on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Slusser, like he said, this was approved for the 21-22 budget. Is this redundant or just informational?
We would like for you to take action to approve it. The funds were budgeted and approved in the fiscal year budget, so it's no new money. But we just wanted to make sure that that the board was one, aware of the project, and that they authorized this particular contractor to do the project. We negotiated this particular project. It's on the state contract. We have state contract pricing on it, but we just wanted to make sure that the vendor was approved as well.
Money set aside for a deal. This is the deal.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if no more questions or comments, what's the pleasure of this board? Well, we did it.
we
So we're
did.
next item. Okay,
Yep.
we came in on the end with the
That's right.
question.
Thank you.
I do apologize to the public and this board. All right, next on the agenda is public utilities, utility capital reimbursement agreement, budget revision, Eastfield Associates. We're going to call on Ms. Farmer.
Good evening. Back in February of 2021, the board gave staff authority to enter into a reimbursement agreement with Eastfield Associates for a project in the Pine Level and Selma area. Had several different project components. Eastfield will be designing and constructing many of the components. The county would contribute 50% on some of the components, and then there's some that would be the county's full obligation. I'll be happy to go through any of those components with you if you want to talk through those. What has happened since February is we've not signed the agreement. We've been working on finalizing the agreement, and the engineer for the project has got to about 90% completion. When we started with the authority in February, the design was just beginning. So of course, a lot of things have changed over the past 9-10 months, particularly with infrastructure pricing. So the budget has increased for the project. We're asking the board to adopt a revised project budget. The additional cost, that would be the county's responsibility, would come from our sewer system development fee reserve account, which is how we funded the original portion of the project as well.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Farmer? Thank you, Ms. Farmer.
Thank you.
What is the pleasure of this board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the revised project budget for the Eastfield Associates Utility Capital Reimbursement Agreement.
I second.
We've got a motion, we've got a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, Mr. McClam, budget revisions. We've got a few.
Hey, good evening. Finance has 6 budget revisions for you this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you notice, A is the second part of the ERA, Emergency Rental Assistance Funds drawdown from the state. That's the NC Pro 1 money that we have in addition to the American Rescue Plan money from the Fed. So I'm just asking for a budget revision on that.
Any questions or comments?
I've been hearing advertisements on the radio about that. How's it going, the program?
It's going really good. Doing a good job. Adam's doing a great job getting the word out, and we're probably averaging over the last 2 or 3 weeks about $35,000 to $40,000 a day going out.
Okay, great.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve the budget amendments as presented by the finance director.
I second it.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to abstain from this vote.
Okay. Mr. Smith is abstaining from the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now manager reports and comments. Mr. Hester?
I think Mr. Newton's going to handle the first one.
Okay.
Good evening. So I have placed at each of your chairs a proposed change order with regard to our comprehensive land use plan contract. This is a change order that we have requested of the consultant. And there are 3 items to be considered, and well, in the change order, there are 3 items for consideration. One is an addition of up to 10 project coordination calls, and this is an up to. We're hopefully will not need those, but we want to add those in. We just feel like from a staff level, we feel like we just need a little more coordination calls on the front end as we get further and further into the process. Additionally, or the second item is a wiki mapping feature that is we hope to present in public forum, or we plan on presenting in public forum this Thursday. This is regionally typically would cost $1,750. The consulting team has reduced that price to $1,500 for us. This is a tool which is an interactive tool that can not only be used at this forum, but it can be used throughout the project and post-project as well. So we'll hopefully be housing that on our website post-project for at least for some time. And that could lead into an opportunity for some additional interactive mapping that we'll be able to utilize once the project is complete from this point forward. And the third item on this change order is an additional $2,800 for steering committee meetings, and this is up to 2 additional. We've already burned through 3 of the 4 that we had planned, so we'd like to add 2 additional to the 4. That would take us to 6 total. So your total change would be $7,800 to the project, taking the new project total from $145,800 to $153,600.
Right, and it's up to, right?
It is up to, yes, sir. All of it. Even our contract is to a maximum.
Any questions or comments for Braston?
Mr. Newton, a lot of this has sort of, the steering committee has sort of steered the study in this direction. I know some participants have asked for more meetings to get a better understanding and just to let this thing warp into what it is. And for us to get the best understanding out of this study that we can possibly get, I think a lot of these things are warranted.
So that's correct. So the steering committees themselves, yes, we would like to add those too, and that is because the steering committee also has asked for those. And that actually parlays into the project coordination calls as well, because we're adding some additional calls in there. Generally, we have a call every 2 weeks. We may advance that if we need to, and we have advanced that already, but on a couple of occasions, but we would just want to make sure we're covered. We don't anticipate, hopefully, we don't anticipate using the 10 at the 3,500, but we want to have them there. I just don't, I would hate to come back and ask for the same thing twice.
Got a motion, Mr. Woods.
If you'd allow me, I make the motion to approve the change order with Nealon on the comprehensive land use plan.
I second.
We've got a motion, we got a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hester, I think you have an item for us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, board members. At your place, you'll have a 20-year record of statistics from building inspections, and those range from number of property inspections to permits issued to staffing. And tonight, I would respectfully ask the board for approval for 2 building inspector positions, additional building inspector, and also to to change one admin position from a temporary position to a permanent. And Mr. Shane Hudson is here tonight if there's any specific questions, but you can see the numbers. The one at the bottom of 2021 with 97,000 inspections is that's double over the last 18 years or so. Well, less than that. You can see during
I would say we've needed for quite a while.
You'd say, you can see there in 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, how numbers changed quite a bit, but it's above and beyond anything we thought we'd see, even prior to 08 when things slowed down quite a bit. So, as you know, building inspections is supported by the fees they collect.
And we also, this is not just county, we also inspect multiple
Yes, sir.
municipalities.
That's a great point, Mr. Wood. We provide inspections for several towns, and now you're starting to see your commercial, residential strong, but also our team is responsible for the new Amazon Center here outside of Smithfield, because we do Smithfield, the new Public Safety Center, the Detention Center, all those things. And Mr. Hudson may have a few comments he'd like to add if you got any questions for him.
I believe I do.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Hester before we?
Well, the only question I got for Mr. Hester and Mr. Hudson might be able to answer is, are we
adding enough?
Yeah. Are we going to have to go back to the well? That's my question.
Mr. Hudson and I talked quite a bit, and I think that right now this works for him, but we keep that door open because we want to make sure he has the team in place to do what he needs to do. But with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hudson.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Hudson, if you will.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hudson, is there a different classification as far as what an inspector can inspect? That's something, a different grade that's per inspector an Amazon building versus inspecting a house?
There is. Each inspector has 3 levels. Basically, level 1 inspector does small commercial, 1 and 2 family dwellings, mobile homes, beginners. Like Amazon is considered level 3. They do 1, 2, and 3. And with the growing commercial, that's what's really put a kind of a strain that you don't have as many people that you can pull from one side to the other, because you're limited on certification that each inspector can do. Like the jail, the Amazon, the larger commercial projects.
I was just curious, Mr. Hester said a certain number of inspectors, but is this going to give you the qualified inspectors as far as, does this leave you open to, if you need commercial inspectors, does this leave you open to where you're able to get that type of inspector versus a home inspector?
Yeah, I think right now, in our industry, pretty much on any job, it's just, it's harder to get people that's a level 3 certified than the level 1s
But, you know, even if we get some level 1 inspectors, I got some level 3 guys that I can move over and move around. We just need to get some experienced people.
Thank you. So are you looking for level 3 in all, is it 4 trades, or is it just certain trades you're looking?
We do all multi-trade in the county. Each inspector has trades in all 5 jurisdictions.
5, okay. All right.
Where are you gonna find the people?
Pray hard.
Hope they're watching right now.
Yeah.
I think it's extraordinary that you've been able to keep up as well as you have. It's a testament to your department and your leadership that things have gone as well as they have. But there's no doubt that you need extra help, and I question it, as with the rest of them, is this enough? But obviously, you'll let us know if it's not. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the request submitted today for the additional staffing and the change of the part-time to a full-time.
We've got a motion.
I say.
We've got a second. Is there any further discussion?
I got one question, Shane. At the hospital, we have traveling nurses, we call it. They're strictly like substitute teachers. Do you have that availability with inspectors? You know, not obligated for a long-term relationship, but call them in when you need them?
It's very limited.
I got you.
I'm going to do that.
Because of the certifications and
Because
everything.
of the certifications, and certain ones are retiring out, and they're just not as interested in coming back in.
I understand.
Great. All right, that's it.
I did have one comment. Commissioner Harris got out there with the motion before I could make my comment, but I would say not just building inspections, but all our growth-related departments. We probably need to look at that, because we are doing a lot with a little. And my concern is with that we have staff that we're
like environmental health,
yeah, all this that we're wearing out because of, I mean, just 97,000 inspections to cover by 24 people, the same as all our other departments that are growth related. So I would say, you know, as we look at next budget, that's probably something we need to look at hard.
And we've been fortunate, like with Jeff and our IT department, you know, back when the beginning of that, it was toting around paper files with you every day, and it's no laptops. Where now everything's in the field with iPads, printers in the cars, and it allows them to do more with less, but they can still only do so much in a day's time.
Right. That's
good.
All right, we've got a motion. We've got a second. All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Mr. Hester. All right, next on the agenda is board reports and comments. Any reports from any board committees? Any comments?
A couple things, Mr. Chairman. You know, you take a gallon of paint, stir it up, and it mixes well, and then you neglect it for a while, and it settles back to the bottom. I want to stir. I get calls at home. Probably the thing I get most calls about lately is about internet connectivity. People with kids at home and that sort of thing, and we just need to keep that on the forefront. I know we've had a study and all that. We still got a lot of areas in the county that has poor connectivity on the internet.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Hester wants to speak to that, but one of the suggestions I would throw out there is, obviously we had a study done, and the study is beneficial to a certain degree. It maps out where we need, where we don't. It's got a lot of great benefit. But if you don't get the providers to work with us, we could throw off, well, I mean, obviously the county cannot be in the internet business, but if we don't have a provider working with us, and, you know, but what I was leading to with this is maybe some community meetings where these rural areas, simply update them on our challenges, our struggles, and where we're at and where we're going.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Godwin, on your, it's Friday. I was speaking with Jeff Brooks, who's our broadband consultant, and he told me he wanted to talk to me this week. He is in conversations with a couple of the large providers, such as CenturyLink, Spectrum, and so we're supposed to be talking this week.
Great.
So there has been an initial conversation, so thank you for bringing that up.
And I agree, Mr. Godwin, that is, me and you live in a different segment of the county, and that trash stickers and internet, and they don't really care or bother us with anything else, but they like those services.
Well, mine has at least transitioned from the stickers to the internet. The other thing I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, was the land use plan. I know that Commissioner Smith brought it up several times to remind us that this is important, and we ought to help steer that towards what we want at the end and not come up with a surprise. And I just want to remind everybody that when this thing does get done, we're going to have the grit and the guts to stick to it. and make it happen, because if we don't, it's not worth anything.
We do have a public forum Thursday from 4 to 7
Yes, sir.
at the Ag Building.
Yes, sir.
And all of the public is invited.
Absolutely.
Any more board reports or comments?
Mr. Chair, I did have a couple. One is to kind of piggyback on that conversation is a request that maybe at the next meeting or the next couple of meetings, we get an update from Mr. Newton on where that process is, some of the information that's gone in. Because most of us, I think with a few exceptions, have not attended any of the meetings. So if we could get an update on kind of how we got to where we are, that would be much appreciated, at least by this commissioner. The other thing, if you'd allow me a point of personal privilege, we have a lot of folks that move from Wake County into Johnston County, and had a young man who spent 2 days in Wake County and now has moved to Johnston County, and that is my grandson, Lane Carter. So he's one of our more recent residents, and I would like to congratulate Lane for coming to God's country. I also would like to congratulate his mother and my daughter, Victoria, and her husband, Ryan Carter. So welcome to Johnston County, Lane.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Any more board reports or comments? If not, is there a need for a closed
Mr.
session?
Chairman, I move the board go into closed session for the purpose of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3, discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4 for the purpose of personnel pursuit pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A6.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? We are now in closed session.